I'm Bronwen Wilson Rashad and I am the wellbeing coordinator on the cost of living for National Theatre Wales. And this is a very new role in theatre, so unlike things like a stage manager or a director, which have got very definite ideas and we understand what it is, this is something new. So wellbeing coordinator is keeping an eye on everyone in the cast and crew's well-being. So that could be to do with their emotional support or physical support. It could also be things like looking at the script and noticing when there might be sensitive bits that are coming up. It might be identifying if a director needs to employ like an intimacy director to bring them in, if there are scenes that are involving nudity or intimate kind of reactions between two people. And it's working with the production team very closely and feeding back all the different bits of information from all these different people so that everyone can work together as well as possible. I am looking forward to lots about this production, partly because the themes around the whole project are something that are really close to my heart, because I have a background in social justice and have seen at the front line the effects of austerity and the pressures that people are under on their mental health, but also on the services that are there to support them, or those services that are really stretched. So the themes are really important to me. I'm also very excited about working with the people on this show. I've been a long-term fan of the Matsenna brothers, so I'm excited about that. You've done wellbeing well when actually the culture that you create within the project seeps out into people's experience of actually coming to watch the show, and also potentially the wider kind of ripple effect of that work. So I'm hoping that because the cast are having me there as an advocate and as someone who can kind of help them navigate some of the trickier aspects of a script that deals with really, really hard topics, that actually they feel safer to explore those topics and to push themselves and to find new interesting ways of showing it, which means that the audience fundamentally get a better show at the end of it, but also as humans we pick up on some really subtle stuff. I think if you go and see a production where actually the cast and crew haven't been looked after, sometimes there is something there, whereas if you go and watch something where everyone has felt a part of the process and has felt seen and heard, that is just in the kind of fabric of the show, and actually the people who go and experience that are getting some of that benefit too. I would like people to think about the fact that mental health isn't just mental health when it's gone wrong. I used to ask people this question when I ran workshops, what words come into your mind when I say mental health? And normally I would get a list of things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, the whole kind of list that we're very familiar with. I would hardly ever get anyone to say to me, oh, being happy or, feeling content. And actually that mental health is just a phrase in the same way that physical health is just a phrase. We can have good mental health, we can have bad mental health, we can have times in our lives when it's better or worse. And actually if we don't think about what our mental health is like when we're in a good place, how are we ever going to know or start to build the structures that we need to get to that good place? So I'd like people to think a bit more broadly about what that actually means. And the other thing I think, and directly related to this project, is that when you take maps of social deprivation and you lay them over the top of mental health support needs, they directly correlate. Mental health isn't just something that happens to people, randomly. Very, very often, in fact, the majority of the time, it's because of the social and economic and psychological circumstances that we've been brought up in. If we look after people, make sure they've got somewhere safe to live, that they've got enough food, that they're educated, that there's work. So I think getting away from this idea that it's just, fixed or predetermined is something that we need to think about. If someone's come to all three parts of the cost of living, so they've come to the meal beforehand and the conversations and the performance and then the gig afterwards, I hope they've been entertained, because that is a really valid thing to have achieved by the end of an evening. But also I hope that they go away with maybe lots of questions actually and thoughts that are not solved and they don't have the answers to, but they'll just get them thinking about things and challenging things that maybe they took for granted or that they thought could never change. And one thing that's really coming out for me from the rehearsals is the fact that actually we can't do anything unless we do it collectively. We have to have collective change, and actually when we're turned into individuals having individual reactions, getting cross or angry or being labelled as difficult, if we can band together, suddenly that's a force for change rather than a problem.